Hello, everybody. Every now and then, people ask me questions, send me emails. When I have enough questions of the same topic, I thought that maybe a short broadcast will help. And this time, the issue on the table is Gaza. How come Israel tolerates this barrage of rockets every now and then, and our retaliation is minimal? Without going back to history to try to explain what is the Gaza area and how we ended up in such a condition as today, let me try to picture you a evening in the life of an Israeli family who lives by the Gaza Strip. It can be 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, or maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, and people are minding their own business, either at home or going to work, and suddenly the siren goes off. When you hear the siren, you have between 10 to 25 seconds, depends how far you live from the Gaza area, to run for your life and to try to find the nearest bomb shelter. You should see kids going to school and suddenly they hear the siren, they're literally running for their lives, totally panicking. And we had some casualties in the past as well. If it happens in the evenings, it's a little easier because if you live in your apartment, by Israeli building code from 1992, every house has its own safe room, and that will be your shelter. So it happens, it's not a daily routine, but we are so accustomed to that, and we actually know when it's going to happen. So this week, when Israel and the Arab Emirates and Bahrain and many other countries were celebrating the signing of the peace treaties, guess what happened? Exactly the same time, a barrage of rockets was fired from Gaza into Israel. And the question is, once again, why do we tolerate such a situation? I don't know, and you don't know any country in the world that will tolerate that. Whenever two entities are in any kind of conflict and one is much stronger than the other and is being threatened by it all the time, it won't hesitate to take out its enemies if they can do that. It's not about who is strong, we're much stronger. And the question is, how come we tolerate that situation vis-a-vis Gaza? I'm not going to go into the complicated Israeli politics, and it is complicated. How do we see the Palestinians? How we try to divide them into two? And maybe this is part of our plan to treat Gaza separately than the West Bank, but this is not the purpose behind this talk this evening. I do want to mention the Iron Dome, that I'm sure that most of you heard about that. And if you did not, it was a great technological accomplishment. We speak about the weapon system, defensive by definition, that was designed to intercept rockets which are low flying and short range, and they scored more than 90% of success in intercepting those rockets which are fired from Gaza into Israel. Our retaliation is very minimal. Our retaliation is very mild, and every now and then we are attacking and bombing some of the Hamas assets in Gaza, very, very careful not to kill people and not to target people. Over the last almost 2 years, we only had one kind of a target killing, and that was for a good reason. So the Israeli mindset is very confused. Number one, it wasn't ever defensive. And suddenly we have a weapon system that is changing some of the Israeli mindset. True, it's a great tactical advantage, but strategically it changes some of the mindset of decision makers in the country, and when that trickles down to the level of military personnel, that can be a strategic problem. Here is the logic behind it, although it's not easy to understand. Since the Iron Dome is working so well for Israel, we are not taking that much casualties, we're not taking that much damage, and therefore there is no pressure from the Israeli public to retaliate. So the government is using the Iron Dome as an instrument to buy some time. You don't have to respond too harshly because nothing basically happened. It is true that about 1.5 million Israelis are living under the threat every day and every night, but it doesn't look like the government seems to bother that much. And therefore you try to get to some understandings vis-a-vis Hamas in Gaza. You don't want to cause too many casualties on the other side. And what makes it possible is the Iron Dome. If Israel did not have the Iron Dome, and a barrage of such rockets will kill Israelis, our retaliation will be so harsh against Gaza that Gaza will be taken out, and maybe it will happen sooner or later. It doesn't look like any other solution. And therefore, Hamas in Gaza knows all too well that when they fire the rockets into Israel, the very fact that they did, it's a victory for itself. They don't care much about what happened on the other side. they can always tell the people, listen, have the potential of rocketing Tel Aviv if necessary. People do not know that most of these rockets will be intercepted, doing no damage whatsoever. So Israel is in a very awkward situation. We do want to respond in a certain way, but as long as there is no pressure from the public, because no casualties took place and not that much damage took place because the Iron Dome is working extremely well, our retaliation is minimal. And therefore it sounds absurd, but the Iron Dome is protecting Gaza more than it is protecting Israel. Let me say it once again. If Israel did not have that weapon system, and the thousands of rockets that we fight from Gaza over the last, almost 15 years now, time after time after time, some of them will hit the ground, and Israel would have taken casualties, we would have to retaliate with everything that we have, which means the total demise of Hamas and maybe demise of the Gaza Strip as well. So speaking about absurds in the Middle East, well, here's one. Israel was the one to develop a weapon system to protect Israel. But the way it looks like, it's protecting Gaza from our retaliation even more than it protects the Israeli side and Israeli civilians. It's New Year's Eve, and I do want to wish all of you a Happy New Year, or Shana Tova in Hebrew. In every Jewish house around the world, in a couple of days, every Jewish family, while celebrating, will also say the following phrase, which is not easy to translate, but you get the message. May this year and its curses ends, and the new year and its blessings begin. Shana Tova, everybody.